Hi, I'm Josh Rushing, and you're in the stream. Today, writing a new national constitution for the people of Chile, well, it's easier said than done. And right now, official debates over what should go into that constitution have begun. So we'll look at the process and we'll look at what issues are at stake for Chileans. All right, look, to understand how Chile got to this point, let's go back to 2019 when a subway fare increase sparked massive protest over inequality and elitism in the country. And many Chileans blamed the Constitution, enacted under the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet, for what they saw as excessive social inequality. So in 2020, the process for a constitutional rewrite was approved in a national referendum. Now, with us today to talk about these issues, actually, you know what? I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. Valentina, can we begin with you?
Of course. Hi, my name is Valentina Matus, and I'm a journalist for Contexto Factual, an independent media here in Chile, and I'm actually on the ground here in the Assembly.
Oh, great. On the ground, so you can give us live updates. And Maria?
Hi, Josh. I'm Maria JARAQUEMADA. I'm a lawyer. I'm a program officer in Chile for IDEA International, and we are supporting the work of the Constitutional Convention.
Thanks, Maria. And you're joining us from Santiago. And Patricio?
Yeah, my name is Patricio Navia. I'm a professor of liberal studies here at New York University. I'm also a Chilean, and I regularly teach in Chile as well at Universidad Diego Portales.
All right, hey, guys, let me introduce one more seat at the table, and that's you. Because if you're watching this right now, it means you're watching live on YouTube. So see that box over there? We have a live stream producer there right now, waiting to get your comments to me so I can make them a part of this discussion. So why don't we do this thing together, right? All right, speaking of doing this thing, let's begin with Valentina. Can you update us? What's happening there today?
Well, actually today, they are presenting a new inform, the Justice Systems Inform. They're on a second stage of the inform because they already voted some of the norms. Some of them were passed for the next step. Another one had got to go back to the commission, the Justice System Commission, so they can get rechecked and then present them again. If they are approved, they're going to go to a next stage, that is the particular voting, where they're going to go article by article to vote them. And if it's not, it gets rejected, and it's not going to be in the proposal of new constitution. This is happening with the Justice Systems Commission. That is one of the 7 commissions that are checking all the information and proposing new articles and norms for this constitution.
You know, I want to go to my computer just for a second here because I want to show the audience. One of the cool things about this is this plenary sessions, they're happening live on Twitter. So people can actually go on Twitter. Don't go now, go after the show. But you can watch what's going on and what's happening. Maria, talk to me for a second. What does it mean for a nation to say, why don't we reconsider the entire Constitution?
Well, it's not easy. As you were saying before, it sounds great, and it is a really interesting process. But of course, it's a very difficult and challenging process also. We have 144 very different people who are writing this constitution, who have to agree in everything by 2/3 of them. And also we have a particularity that most of these people, more than 65% of them, have never been in public office before. Most of them come from independent movements or for social movements or are activists, for example. So that's also very challenging for writing a new constitution. And we have also like 2 novelties to say that we have reserved seats for Indigenous people in a country where we are one of the 2 countries in all Latin America that we don't recognize our Indigenous peoples on our constitutions, or our current constitution. So that is a novelty for the Chilean process, but also other processes. And we have gender parity at the Constitutional Convention. So it's a very challenging process, but it also, like any process that has different people sitting in and discussing and agreeing and having a lot of consensus, it's also very difficult, and you need to process a lot of information. So,
well, before we get to the difficulties, I want to kind of highlight how many people are involved and how the process is actually trying to involve a lot of people there in Chile. So I'm going to bring in a soundbite. Now, this is from Maria Elisa Quinteros, and she is the she's the president of the convention. Here, let's check this out.
This is unprecedented in Chilean politics, where there is no popular initiative law, for example. We have seen that many people are interested, even though we have a gap in internet access and we also have problems of digital literacy in the country. We know this, and we know that it is a limitation. However, more than 2 million people have participated, have entered the platform, and have sponsored initiatives.
So, Patricio, what caught my ear there was she said more than 2 million people have participated in this process. That sounds like good governance. That sounds like good citizens at work. What do you say to that?
Well, constitutions are a bit more complicated. And the problem with this constitution in particular, and with the process in particular, is that if the real problem in Chile was inequality, which to some extent it is, Chile is one of the most unequal countries given its level of development in the world, the experience in Latin America is that all previous constitutions that have been written, and Latin America has the world record of writing constitutions, haven't really reduced inequality anywhere else. So people are concerned about inequality. That's a good concern. Countries shouldn't be that unequal, but we're taking a road to solve inequality. We're taking a process to solve inequality that hasn't really worked anywhere else. So to a large extent, many of the people will end up being disappointed because they are actively participating. They have high hopes that the Constitution will solve Chile's problems, but given that the most important problem is inequality, and the experience in Latin America has been that new constitutions don't reduce inequality, then Chileans are in for a big disappointment in the years to come.
Well,
I think there's something very interesting with what Patricio says, that people are going to be disappointed. But I think there might be people that are already disappointed. The process hasn't gone as they would like to. People wanted for them to sit down and start writing the Constitution right away. It doesn't work that way. And I think it may be troubled, or the convention has been troubled to explain people that you can't just sit and do it. You have to have rules, you have to have commissions, organize it in a very good way. And I think maybe that hasn't been communicating well. So I would probably say that people are disappointed. There's also people saying that they're going to reject the project no matter what the result is. So I think that the conventionals, the members of the assembly, have to put an eye on that, because the people are scared, people are not happy, and maybe this will be a disappointment before than we want it to be. That could be when it's already written.
I mean, can you imagine a constitutional, an outcome here where people aren't disappointed? And is that even the goal? And speaking of the goal, when you talked about the inequality, there's a lot more at stake here, Maria, than just economic issues, right? What's on the table?
Yes, of course. We have a mistrust crisis with political institutions that is really, really very worrying. So, of course, there's also here in stake, how can you redesign, if you can say that, how can you redesign your institutions in a way that they are more coherent, or they are more accountable, or people can participate more in public issues. And I think that that's also on stake here. I think that there's an inequality in a social economic perspective, but also in the access to power, for example, in the exercise of power. And I think that there are a lot of conversations here that people agree that need to be changed, but the detail of how it is need to be changed, it is what is very challenging. For example, decentralization. I think that there's a very big agreement about more decentralization, about gender parity, about more representation and participation of indigenous people. But how are we going to do that? That is a very challenging issue. And of course, as Patricio was saying, the Constitution is not only the solution for inequality. You have then to implement this new Constitution, and what is going to happen in the transition period between the current Constitution and the new Constitution, if it is approved by people. But I think that the process sometimes can be more important or as important as the content of the new constitution. And as you said, there's a lot of more participation from citizens that we used to have here in Chile.
You know, talking about these reforms, I want to bring in another voice. This is Nicholas Oldias. He's an analyst for Latin America and the Caribbean in Washington, D.C. Here, check out what he says about this.
Although these reforms do lead to a more inclusive society, they also do raise the prospect of making Chile's business environment less attractive, which is posing risks to the country's growth potential.
Patricio, so he's talking about business concerns. One of the big issues when these kind of upheavals happen in Latin America is often about privatization of natural resources. Can you touch on where that is in the debate down there and what the significance of that is?
Yeah, I mean, if we want to reduce inequality, there has to be economic development, right? You cannot be equally poor. That's not the idea. We want to be equally wealthy. So economic development is central. And one of the things the Constitutional Convention is doing is calling into question the market-friendly economic model that Chile has had in place. Some reforms are certainly needed. You need to introduce more protection for the environment. You need to introduce higher taxes so that companies can contribute more to the country, particularly those companies that exploit minerals. But the problem of the Constitutional Convention is that most of the people in the Constitutional Convention don't understand how businesses work, and they really are not really paying attention to what the experts are telling them. So the problem is that they say, well, we don't like the Chile that existed before, so we're going to create a whole new Chile, and we're not going to even look at the previous constitutional history of Chile to learn from the past. We're going to start from a blank sheet of paper. And that's really unwise. If you're going to write a new constitution, you should learn from what has worked in the country and from what has worked elsewhere. And you should put the things that work in the constitution and don't get too creative with things that haven't worked anywhere else or things that have actually produced really bad results everywhere else. And I think the Constitutional Convention is ignoring the comparative evidence from other countries and is implementing things that really haven't worked anywhere.
I think that Patricio has a point there because the assembly, the members of the assembly are very worried about what people want, and people want, the majority of people, of course there's people there is not, they want to erase every little bit of the heritage of the dictatorship. So all of our business model right now is an heritage of this. So they say we have to erase it and search different models to do this, and that it might not work, just as Patricio says. And also the Economic Model Commission doesn't have much center members or more right members centers. It's all like really, really left-winged members. So they want to do like really big changes and like reform everything that we have. And that's because the political blocs and the social movements couldn't agree to get the members that could be more centered or more right-wing during the commission. So that's really interesting because it's also their fault. They decided not to put people on this commission that could like leverage a little bit the things that we're discussing.
Mm-hmm. You know, I thought it was interesting, the process. It's if you have, 3/5 of the people agree, but not 2/3, then it's going to go back to the people for a vote. And I thought, well, okay, so if less than 3/5 they don't agree on it, that makes sense. It's an easy no. And if more than 2/3 agree on it, it's an easy yes. So it really takes those more contentious issues and puts them back to the people. How is that process working so far?
No, it's not really working like that now, because that was a proposal of the Constitutional Convention, but it has to be approved by the Congress. And most probably the Congress that will start on March 11 won't have the votes for approving that. So they are agreeing in most of the issues for 2/3. And this is, but that's also the thing with, for example, the initiatives of people. There were two initiatives, one for reproductive and sexual rights of women, and the other that it was like pro-life, as you can say. So they were opposing each other, and both have the number of signatures of people promoting them. So the convention has to discuss this. And recently they have approved sexual and reproductive rights. It's not something that it's yet approved by the plenary, so it can change. But there you have like two different movements or two different proposals from citizens that one of them is going to be rejected by the Constitutional Convention. So of course you are going to have people that is not really satisfied with its results. But also I want to put like a cautious alarm or warning that many of these things are initially being discussed. So a lot of issues that can worry people, for example, the economical issues, they are being discussed, they are being proposed, but they are not yet decided. And there are being some alerts by public opinion or some experts about some issues, for example, with legal plurality with indigenous people, or for example, with eliminating the Senate and having only one chamber, and they have been rethinking these issues. So although there's not much time for the Constitutional Convention to write this proposal, there is a lot of things that are going to happen the next months. So I think that we should also be cautious about saying some things that we still don't know how they are going to resolve them.
Yoni, you mentioned March 11th. That's the new administration coming in. Of course, Chile has elected a very young leftist president, Gabriel Boric. How will that influence or change this? Where is he on this issue? Valentina?
Well, it technically shouldn't. It shouldn't influence to the work of the convention because it's a different power. It's a different part of how government works, how the state works. So he came to the convention. He reunited with the president and the vice president, and they had a really nice chat. But he said he had a compromise with not influencing how the process went, and that he and his government will give all the resources and all the help that was possible. But he was gonna look at it from outside and not intervene in anything that the convention does.
I want to bring in a couple of comments from the YouTube audience right now. Camila Munoz says, what's the outcome that the panel sees after the new constitution is presented? And Octavio Studio, it looks like, in the face of the world crises we're facing as humanity, do you believe that all countries should enter into a constituent process as Chile has? Patricio, you want to respond to those?
Yeah, well, writing a new constitution is like building a new house, right? And the problem is that President Boric is coming in. He's coming in before the new house is being fully built, and he has to govern, he has to live in that house, and that's going to generate problems. Normally, constitutions are written after the president comes into office and not in the middle of a transition from one government to the next. And the other problem with building a house is that you cannot make everyone happy. And I think the problem with the Constitutional Convention is that it's trying to make a lot of different people happy. So they are bringing Mediterranean, Mexican style, modernist style, traditionalist styles into the Constitution. And they are trying to put a Constitution that looks like way too many things. And that house is not going to stand. Constitutions would ideally be minimalist, and this will probably be one of the longest constitutions in the world because they are putting lots of things into the constitution. That's never a good idea. In building constitutions, less is better than having way too many things, and this constitution will end up looking like a Christmas tree with presents for everyone, with social rights for everyone, and then the country will just not have enough money to fund all those social rights.
Murray, do you see it the same?
In theory, yes, in theory, I support what Patricio says. I also think that you need a more minimalist constitution than you don't need anything written because you need that different governments can govern with this constitution. That is the house for everybody. I agree with that. But also, I agree that the power or the value of the constitutions is the legitimacy that people gives them. And most probably this new constitution, this new text will need to address some issues that are problematic here in Chile. For example, that we don't really guarantee some social and economical rights. So I think we are going to move that way. And also how you consider and how you respect and how you promote the participation of groups and people who are traditionally excluded from power or decisions, like indigenous people, like women, and other kind of groups. So I think that in the theory, if we study like the theory, yes, we would like perhaps a minimalist text and an adaptive text. But also, I think that we need to recognize some lack of recognition or some lack of equality in a lot of issues of our current constitution, and that it needs to be included so that people consider that this constitution is legitimate.
I want to bring in another voice here. This is Muriel.
Everyone on the table.
Oh, wait, go for it. Go for it, Patricia.
You need to seat everyone on the table. The question is whether you need a new table. And I think in Chile, we're trying to build a new table rather than sit everyone at the table.
And Valentina, you were going to jump in there too, right?
Yeah, I agree with both, but there's a thing that we aren't considering, that maybe the people that are here want to put things that maybe shouldn't go on the Constitution. I mean, people here want all of their rights or all of their beliefs, all of their dreams written in this new Constitution. And for example, there are things about seats. And I haven't seen constitutions in other countries that have norms or things about seats. And it doesn't mean that seats and food security isn't important, but maybe it's law material. So I think that many of the people here just want to get their own thinking in their constitution, and maybe they haven't realized what Patricia said before, like the comfort experience, and if it should really be there. I talk a lot with all the assembly members, and they're super fitted with the idea that what they want has to go there. And it's because of the people and because the people want it, but maybe, I don't know if they think, well, is this okay? Should it go here? Shouldn't the Congress after legislate a law upon it? So I think that's it's going to be an interesting result what we have from here.
Hey, I'm going to pull in one more voice here. This is Muriel Alarcon Luco. She's a freelance journalist, and listen to what she has to say.
This unprecedented process has brought together citizens from the most diverse sectors. 2 weeks ago, the voting within the Constitutional Assembly began. The paper is no longer blank, but not all the themes have been approved by defined quorums. Many have been rejected and returned to their original commissions. Delicate times are ahead, and it has not yet been defined whether or not an extension will be requested. Conventions are already meeting in the weekends to debate about the draft. Time is running out.
So Valentina, you're there. How much pressure are the constituents feeling with the deadline approaching?
Well, if we put it on a scale from 1 to 10, 100. Like, they are telling you all the time, like, we have to get this done by the 4th of July. We have to do it. We have to do it. And from outside, we're saying, like, I know you have to do it. The law says it. It's trouble in the new Congress that you're going to pass a law so you can get more time. But it's difficult. I mean, all this, the discussion, it can turn up into 8 hours, and then the voting article by article. It takes time. And it also, you can question, okay, you're voting on it, and it's important, and everything should get really, really checked. But what if you're voting at 2 a.m.? Are people going to be listening to you? Are they going to be informed about the process? So there's a lot of things that they should take in account, and I think that in this moment they're not. But they are really troubled about the time.
And at the end of the process, it goes back to the people for a vote? Is that right? To be approved?
Yeah, it does.
And right now, the polls are looking like maybe less than half of the people are supporting it at this point. So if this gets voted...
I mean, people want a new constitution.
Yeah.
People want a new constitution. They are not very happy with the job the Constitutional Convention is doing. But people think the new constitution, it's like a magic pill that will solve all of Chile's problems. So they do want a new constitution, even if they don't understand what the new constitution will have or what the content of the new constitution should be.
Oh, okay, I got it. So, you know, this just seems like this is, it's messy, it's challenging, it's difficult, but it's also democracy at work and kind of fascinating. So as this approaches the deadline on July 4th, we'll be watching it here on Al Jazeera English. And I want to thank all of you for joining us today. And for our audience, well, we'll see you next time on the stream.